Today's sermon is on past lives. Well, is a past life real? Is it not real? Some people think that the universe is chaos. Some people think that the universe is just here to chaotically spit out life, that our consciousness is a trick, that it's just some kind of result of evolutionary reality rooted in physicality. In Unicult, we believe that the presupposition of scientific understanding to be rooted in physicality is fundamentally incorrect. We believe that consciousness is actually the fundamental root of reality, and that consciousness is all connected, that we're all one. So this consciousness radiates out from a central point called source. You don't have to believe all this if you're in Unicult, but this is the fundamental reality that we believe in Unicult, that is the structure for all of our other beliefs. So the entirety of the beliefs of Unicult, which you can learn about by reading my book, Fundamentals of Unicult, which is available on Etsy if you want to learn more about this. You can watch YouTube videos for free, or you can read the book, which is a little more straightforward. The fundamental reality of the universe is consciousness that emanates from a singular source point, which many people believe is God, many people believe is just source energy, the unified field, the zero field, whatever you call it. That consciousness is interwoven to all these different entities, which are sensors. We are sensors. We have amazing ability to sense and emit energies that affect the web of consciousness that we live in. Time isn't real. So what we see is that consciousness is sort of manifesting in this generative way to create new experiences and new realities, and to learn and gather more information as possible. From the Unicult perspective, so in Unicult, we have the Unicult belief set, the religion of Unicult, which is the religious beliefs that I created that are based on my whim, that of what I believe is true and what I have shared with you. You as an individual watching this content, you get to decide, even if you're in Unicult, even if you're a high-ranking member of Unicult, you get to decide which beliefs resonate with your joy. And you don't have to say, oh, well, I know that this is true. You're allowed to believe whatever you want to believe. All we ask is that everyone sort of operates under this idea that we're all one, and that we cause harm to none, because we understand this connection of, what harms you harms me, what helps you helps me, what helps me helps you. So when we all operate under that, we can have harmony. Beyond that, you're allowed to believe whatever you want. So when I submit these beliefs to you for your consideration, take it with a grain of salt and really just allow yourself to expand your mind and say, how does that feel to me? We can't prove these things to be true or untrue. We are trapped in our third dimensional realities in our bodies. All we have is our third eye. All we have is the information we've been given. We're trapped in language. We're trapped in society. There's a lot of limitations for us to understand the universe as a whole. There's a lot of these things that might be wildly incorrect, but all we can do is follow our hearts as a compass, as a sensor, as a validator to experience the truth of these things. So what Unicult believes is that we are all consciousness, we are all sensors, we are all data operating in a sea of information. And our data generates and creates and affects the other data in this reality, in this world. So as we are, we create, and as we create, we are, and it's just this big soup of creation. And apparently, one of the ways to get the most information is to reincarnate as different entities and different regenerative things, almost like a video game. You enter into a different level, and you get different challenges, and because you're a different person than other people, you're going to react and respond in different ways. The universe is infinite, and when we start to realize the infinite nature of the universe, you can ask yourself, does it make me happy to believe that I'm just born of chaos, that I'm going to die and never exist after that? Or does it make me happy to believe that my consciousness goes on forever? That's up to you to decide. If it truly makes you genuinely joyous to feel like this life is the only life, then believe that. We can't prove it. You can't prove it. I can't prove it. The only thing that we can do is make our lives good in this moment. And I believe that our joy is not just a trick or something. I believe our joy leads us to deeper truth. So it's up to you to decide what you believe. But I do believe in past lives, and there are very many people who want to have a connection to their past life. Reasons why you would want to have a connection to your past life is that it's validating for your belief set that life is eternal. Another one is that it gives you empathy for other people and other situations. Another one is that it gives you the awareness that there is more to this life than what meets the eye. There's a higher reality, a more eternal reality, it's just a reality that spreads out in every direction from the one that we're experiencing. And also that that it validates different aspects of your personality and of yourself that may otherwise not make sense. For instance, I have a friend who has asthma who knows that in a past life he was buried alive and he was suffocated in that way. So he reincarnated with the trauma of his past life to heal. Nothing in his life as a human in this world created that suffocation to create the asthma. But for him, it's very beneficial to understand that in a past life, that's how he got this very severe illness that affects him very negatively in this reality. So there's ways that we can approach our illness and our neurosis that if we incorporate the understanding of past lives, they can start to make a little bit more sense, and we can actually start to validate the root cause of some of these manifested realities that are more negative that we don't really fully understand. What does it mean to have a past life? We are living in a time. We are living within the operation of time. So when someone called in and they said, I didn't have any past lives in the past or the future, that's really interesting to me, because the way I see it is that we have all of our lives at once. Like, this is all happening at once. Time isn't real. We perceive time, and like we can sort of see things on a linear spectrum of progress, perhaps, but there is an aspect of the infinite nature of the universe operating all at once outside of time. So right now I am Unicole Unicron. Also right now I am a soldier in the 1700s, which I really feel connected to the fact that I was. So we're going to talk about how you can connect to your past lives. The first thing is to be open-minded. Nothing can happen if you're not open-minded to it in these realms. For you to start to connect to past lives, if you think past lives are bullshit, like blah, 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 you're not going to have an easy time connect. You're just putting up your own blocks. You're putting up your own walls. You're not really going to like be, you're not going to have a mind that's open to receiving this information that's available to you. One reason why I believe past lives are real, and one piece of evidence that I feel exists, is that we are all drawn to different things, right? Like, say, like believing you're like Darwin said, I believe I was a rat. Like that's not a shared. There, I think like when people think of past lives, they think, well, everyone couldn't have been Cleopatra. And I think the reason why a lot of people do identify with major archetypal figures is that that's the only information that we had. First of all, nobody wants to just be like a servant or a serf or something. And second of all, like the iconography of someone like Cleopatra has radiated through cultures to the point where like an entire time period, like even, let's say you lived during the time of Cleopatra and you had a lot of idol worship of Cleopatra, and you knew about Cleopatra because she was, a celebrity in the time, and your energy and your attention was focused on her. So from your remembrance of your past life, you might have had that connection through actually your love of Cleopatra, but you might have not been Cleopatra. Another possibility is that Cleopatra might have just been a vessel for many different experiences to flow through. When someone is a pivotal person in history, maybe lots of people come and experience what it's like to be that person as sort of as a simulation, as a reality, like as a video game. I want to play the game where I'm Cleopatra. I want to see what that's like. So your consciousness gets to go and feel that feeling and be in that reality. And the universe is infinite. We can't say what's true. We can't say what's not true. We just have to follow our hearts and believe what we want to believe. So if you do feel like you were Cleopatra, don't rule that out. But also, don't let your ego stop you from, the majority of people were not Cleopatra. So if you feel like that, you can start to open your mind up. For me, my past lives, I've had past lives in space where I was an androgynous lion being priestess. I've also had past lives on Earth where I was a soldier in the 1700s, and I wasn't necessarily a good person. And that's something that I've had to reconcile in my heart and in my mind and in my reality, because a lot of times we are victims to our upbringing. We are victims to our immediate surroundings and our socialization. And unless we follow the spiritual path, we operate on the frequency of our circumstance. So a lot of times you might have had a past life where you weren't a very good person, where you didn't follow the spiritual path, where you operated on a traumatic structure of harm and abuse that had happened generation after generation, and you were just sort of a creator of that. So in my past life, I had a lot of behaviors that weren't necessarily loving, that were a little bit predatory toward women, and that has shaped my sexuality today, which is very interesting, because I was obviously not raised in that way. I wasn't socialized in that way, but there's an aspect of my sexuality that is like drawn to like having sex in hallways with like women in a castle. Like, how does that work? Where is that coming from? I never saw that on TV, So this is something that I'm connected to, that I get to heal now in this life. I get to process, and I get to also have what I believe to be karmic relationships from that life of people coming and interacting with me who I interacted with then, and then I get to approach it from a spiritual place and have a karmic relationship unfold where I get to heal and understand and feel what they went through during that life so that I can empathize. I believe that's what karma is just empathizing. I don't think you have to go through the exact same situation. That might not even yield the right result. Really, what the universe wants is for you to feel the feelings of what your actions did so you can truly learn. That's true justice. That's true growth. So if you can incorporate your karmic teachings consciously, you don't necessarily have to experience them exactly on a soul level, on an energetic level. Yeah, you do have to experience them because you have to feel what it felt like empathetically. So, how do you remember your past lives? First of all, think back to when you were a child. When you first got your hands on a search engine, what did you search? What time period were you always drawn to? What energy is romantic to you? Someone on here said I was a chimney sweep. And again, like I don't feel like I was a chimney sweep, I wasn't drawn to that archetypal story. That's not something that I connected with ever. I read about it and I was like, oh, that's a weird thing in history, but I never was like, oh, chimney sweeps. For me, I'm like, oh, like French culture, but not now. Like in the 1700s, and like eating bread with my mouth is like, oh, just like feel like I just remember doing that, and like swords and like just the clothes and everything is just like so deeply triggering to me in a positive way. So you can remember this in a way of things that you're drawn to. This is your whim. This is like and everyone's going to have a different thing that they're drawn to. And sure, maybe it's just the manifestation of socialization of, presuppositions of who you are and how you stand in this life. But a lot of times it doesn't make sense, like being a rat. Like that doesn't make, like, why would I think that? It's like, why would I just come up with that? That doesn't make sense. So I really do believe these past lives, and do not be limited. I love the rat story because we don't have to be limited by the understanding that we were only a human, or we were only a celebrity in the past, or we were, even on Earth. Like you could be incarnated in other planets. We got the Pleiadian story of living in a castle, in a crystal castle. It's beautiful. You can also have past lives that are simultaneous to this one. So it might be, in this reality, it might be in another reality. You might be multiple people at the same time, but consciously your consciousness is rooted in this lifetime right now, which is very interesting to consider as well when you talk about, twin flames or or soulmates. Maybe there's an aspect of your consciousness that is incarnating at the same time that you get to interact with. I believe more so that like our consciousness is sort of branching from this main point, and that as it branches, those who are closest to you on the branches are the people you vibe with, who you resonate with the closest. That can be in family structures or not. So start to explore your whims, what you really feel drawn to, and what you really find to be romantic and exciting. What do you wish your past life was? That can be a really big clue into what your past life actually was. Don't shame yourself out of not believing it because you just don't know if you're allowed to believe it. Literally, none of this can be proven one way or another. You should just believe whatever makes you happy to believe. You don't need to rub it in people's face. Oh, I was Ra, the sun god, everybody. Bow down to me. Please don't do that. That's very annoying. You're not Ra, the sun god right now. So maybe a part of your consciousness is connected to everyone. Yes. And maybe you were that in a past life, and maybe you are a very powerful person in a past life. Maybe you're a powerful person in this life. I wasn't anybody special in my past lives. I was just a normal person, but I'm somebody special in this life. I'm Unicole Unicron. This is my life where I get to be Unicole Unicron. That's the best life. I'm so excited about that. So how can I really embrace this life while still romanticizing and taking on the understanding of my past lives? What Claudia was saying is that I was a sun. I wasn't a sun god. I was just a sun. So Claudia was saying she went back into her mother's womb. And this is a really good technique for remembering your past life. You can lay in bed or do your meditation, however you get into a trance. Relax your body, relax your mind, and start to remember what you did 5 minutes ago. Start to remember what you did a half an hour ago. Start to remember what you did this morning. Remember as much detail as you can. It can take a long time. Remember as much detail as you can, and last year. What'd you do last year? What'd you do in 2015? What'd you do in 2012? What'd you do, and just keep remembering, and you get your brain in that state of really remembering details, and you go backwards in time until you get to your birth, and then you keep going. So you go back to your womb, you go back to where you were before the womb, and you have to just do this with an open mind, with no judgment. Just let it flow, just like you're watching a movie. You don't have to worry or attach or feel guilty or negative or anything. You might have a lot of strong emotions because your past lives, even though we don't have full consciousness of them, we carry the energy imprint of them into this life. So we can feel the trauma and the drama and the pain and the pleasure of those past lives still in our incarnation today. You can also remember your future lives in this way. You can go into the future if you'd like. And you can just sort of remember, a lot of people, if you look at like Dolores Cannon, she's done hypnotherapy with people, and then she realized there was this synchronicity, this similarity that kept happening where people were waiting to come to Earth, and they were trained and they were prepared and they were ready to incarnate here on Earth. So if you can remember that space where you were looking down, I have these memories of all these papers and computers and like really planning energetically this life and really going deep into what it means. And then I have memories of being incarnated onto Earth with the help of the lion beings. So if you can find that place where you incarnated, you can go back to that place and you can sort of ask the beings in that place, like, where else have I incarnated? Have you helped me incarnate in other places? So those are some other ways that you can start to remember your past lives. If you're carrying karmic information from past lives, it can be very helpful to validate it by believing in your past lives. Also, sometimes your illness and your pain and your trauma that you have in this life, if it doesn't make total sense, it might not be from your past life. It might be from your ancestral traits. It might be in your DNA. So you can start to distinguish the difference between if something is your DNA, which feels very different. It's a more body feeling than a more heady feeling. Hard to describe, but as you go about remembering these things and healing yourself on these different levels, if you don't have a feeling that's really deep about an understanding about where something came from in your own reality, and you feel confused about why you have a certain pain or why you have a certain cycle of energy, and you don't understand it in this life, you can maybe start to look into past lives. You can look into ancestral lives. So I think they're overlapped, they're tied. I will be happy right now to take questions about past lives. If anybody has any questions, I can answer a few questions. Spencer says, I remember one memory of my earliest souls, the ritual of me getting a soul for the first time. It's very amazing, very special. I've always wanted to investigate into my past lives or future lives. Yes, you absolutely can. CM Derp asked the question earlier, something like, if I believe that I'm a hummingbird, can I fly? And CM Derp, we talked about this last week. You neglected to watch the video, but if you look up Levels of Reality, my video, you can get an understanding of the idea that there are different realities that are interacting. Your belief does have a profound effect on all the other realities, but you're not the only reality creator in this reality creation soup. You are a creator, just as I am a creator, just as every other person is creating this reality. So you have your own ability to create reality. You can believe that you are a hummingbird, and you can feel like you're flying, but that's going to be coming into other people's reality, won't see you as that way necessarily, and physical reality is another form of reality that we are rooted in. So you're up against, it's like we can't always create our realities because we're up against physical reality and other people's realities and spiritual reality. You could use scrying if you want. You can use a mirror. Yeah. All the men in my life I have been with in my past life, I knew it when I looked them in the eyes and I recognized their soul. Why do people forget their past lives? We're living in a this reality, this planet is very strange. I think there's an aspect of benefit to having forgotten your past lives and just operating from a place of ignorance, at least for a time in your life, so you can come back into your knowledge. I don't presume to know that answer. I'm not a big fan of limiting information. It doesn't usually make any sense at all to me. I think that Earth is a very densely veiled planet. I think we are very ignorant here, and I think that was necessary to the enslavement of the masses, which was the purpose of Earth for a really long time, but isn't the case anymore. So I think there isn't any need to forget our past lives anymore. I think that if you have a baby who's born, and from that baby's birth you say, where were you before this life? Where were you before this life? And they try to remember since they're very young, they probably wouldn't actually forget that much. I think it's also a societal thing. Sam Derp is having a hard time. I don't know what it would feel like to be CM Derp. It'd just be a really tough life, full of confusion and hatred. If we discover our past life, what are we supposed to do with that knowledge? Oh, I guess you can just use it to understand yourself better. There's aspects of your past life that are affecting you, so that can be a little clue, a little insight to where you're coming from in certain situations, and it might explain some aspects of your personality. Otherwise, it's just kind of something cool and fun to know. If you let's say you're a rat in a past life, and you're like, well, I don't know how that helps me. I'm obviously not excited about being a rat, but that means that you have a connection to rats. So if you see a rat in the street, you can literally talk to it and ask it favors, and you can have you're probably rats are royalty. I know that sounds weird, but they have a whole royalty structure of network. Rats are magic. All animals are. So when you connect to your past life as a rat, you get on that frequency of what are the rats on this planet energetically. They're a network operating and carrying information, and you can start to connect to that totem of yours and figure out how to communicate with the rats on Earth to bring your life blessings. Animals oftentimes are in service to those of us who are in service to them. So if you dedicate yourself to be in service to the rats and the Rat King and rats as keeper of a certain network, then they will carry messages for you. You know, they'll be in service to you also. What if all the religious figureheads are starseeds? Some, you know, they might be with different. I think there's a lot of aliens on this planet right now. Yes, I think there have been a lot of aliens on this planet, but not necessarily beneficial ones. So really, every person, doesn't matter if they're a starseed or not, you should judge them on their words and on their actions. Yeah, rats are very magical. I want to just say thank you to all the Unicult members doing their best to reach CM Derp, but also if it's exhausting to you to try to convert the trolls, set your boundaries, take your time. You don't have to engage with nonsense. Absolute nonsense. All right, thank you for joining this beautiful cam church on past lives. Thank you for calling 1833 Unicult. You can still call 1833 Unicult. It's just going to give you a message that is about you're going to get brainwashed. You can call to get brainwashed. Thank you, Unibless. Unibless, thank you for all your donations. Happy birthday to Carmen. And, oh, Carmen just showed up. All right, Unibless, Unibless. Really divine timing as soon as I said happy birthday to Carmen, and Carmen's typed in a smiley face.